it's such a complicated thing, but I think a lot of times we complicate it for ourselves. Like, I don't know about you guys, but I'm always and still super hard on myself. And I always think that the world is judging me. I still feel like I'm disliked by like a lot of people, but it's not about being liked, or it's not about the world telling you that you're doing the right thing.
This is Motovation. I'm Laura Joy Kingwell.
And I'm Chrissy Van. We're two dreamers on two wheels inspired by our community.
And celebrating the voices we're just lucky enough to discover along the ride. So if not already, like, subscribe, follow along, do what you gotta do to not miss an episode.
Some riders spark movements without even trying. Yuki is one of those people. What started as a leap into the unknown, taking a job at Trev Deeley Motorcycles nearly a decade ago, turned into a journey of self-discovery and transformation. Along the way, she became the heartbeat of Vancouver's bike life scene, building a community that grew not through recruitment, but through authenticity, connection, and the simple act of just showing up on two wheels. But as her profile grew, so did the weight of expectation. The passion that once fueled her freedom became her day job and her night job, leaving her chasing validation and burning out. Somewhere along the way, she lost touch with her own identity. And as she shares, the decision to step back was painful, but necessary to reclaim herself. For anyone who's ever loved something so much that it consumed you, Yuki's story is a reminder that sometimes letting go is the only way to find yourself again. This is the Motovation.
Chrissy, you are the interview extraordinaire. I will let you kick it off.
I'm glad that you did, because I'm actually about to share a story that Yuki hasn't heard. And Lori, you've heard iterations of it. Heard. That's a great start.
Nobody's heard it yet, and I can't wait to tell it.
It's really going to ruin the essence of the deep and meaningful now.
Yeah, right.
But you have heard iterations of it without realizing who it was. But Yuki, this would be 5 years ago, maybe 6 years ago. I was pillion on that dude's bike that I used to hang around with for 20 years. And we were riding to White Rock. And we were going through the valley, and you were on your stunning motorcycle. And I have to say, if you've not seen Yuki riding around Vancouver, she has the most incredible purple iridescent paint job on her bike. It catches the sun. She wears sparkles on her cheeks that glow under her helmet. And she was to the right of me as I sat on the back of this bike. It was golden hour. I remember exactly what the mountains looked like. Your hair was longer, little bits flowing out your helmet. And I remember looking at you thinking, that is fucking powerful. And then the second question in my brain was, why the fuck am I back here? And so I actually did my knowledge test in BC 2 days later, bought my bike the day after that, and started riding again. It was something that I had picked up when I was 21, was terrified, dropped it. And so the example of you reignited the spark in me. And you actually would have never known that was you. And I share that story to kick our interview off with you today, because before we started the podcast itself, the three of us were chatting about how our stories and the willingness to share them publicly move people. And Yuki, you are somebody that is so incredibly respected in the motorcycle community in Vancouver. You are so well loved. You have been the epicenter of the community. I mean, when you came onto the scene through Bike Life, obviously I was newer on the scene as well, but this insane momentum started to build. Men, women, they, them, all coming together. And you were really at the center of that. So let's start from the beginning here, because I just shared where my motorcycle seed got planted. Where did it start for you?
You know, it really warms my heart to hear your story. And I've heard stories very similar to your experience of, you know, seeing another gal just rolling along on her motorcycle, and you see that she's living her best life, and it's like, I want that for myself. Or if she can do it, then I could do it too, so to inspire other women, to inspire new riders or potential riders, to inspire men as well, like, just to inspire people of all ages and from all backgrounds, is the basis of how I started bike life with a group of fellows. I started my motorcycling journey when I worked at Trev Deeley Motorcycles about almost 10 years ago now. So that was a whole decade ago. I was a completely different person before I learned how to ride, and, before I started meeting all these people through riding. And so my journey really started from then. And at first I felt so out of place because it's a completely different world I dove into. And to get myself out of my comfort zone, it was scary. It was really scary because at the time I hardly knew people in the motorcycle community. I hardly knew about Harley Davidson as a brand. Like, everything was completely new to me. And so to go from there to where I'm now, or even 5 years ago, 7 years ago, whenever it was that bike life started, is just like night and day. It's, it was a huge transformation that I went through, and it was a huge self-discovery. And I couldn't have done that if it wasn't for the people I've met. The people I've met at Trev Deeley Motorcycles really supported the launch of my career, and to find and build a community from a small group of friends that we were just drawing people in, and without, like, we weren't even trying that. We were just hanging out, just getting Starbucks, going out to see the sky. But every time we parked our bikes and we were hanging out, it was like people would see us on the roads, and people would stop and talk to us. And, we eventually became like friends from just pure strangers on the street. And that just organically grew. And the group, as we've all seen, it grew tremendously and so fast, but it was organic. It wasn't like we were actively going around recruiting people. We were just being ourselves. And I think when people were discovering us as a small collective, people were drawn to us because we're social creatures, right? Humans are social creatures, whether we're extroverted or introverted. We all want connection. We all want to feel like we're part of something. And like we were previously talking about, everybody, we all have our own struggles, and we have, just day-to-day lives that we want to escape from. And motorcycling is such a good outlet for so many people. But for people who don't know, like who are new to the city or new to Vancouver, or they just don't know anybody else who ride, but they want to have that connection. They want to have that group of friends they roll with. That was just like the perfect place. That was a perfect space for people to gravitate into and to be part of, so.
Well, I'm curious because you said getting into Trev Deeley, getting into motorcycles, getting into this community. You started out saying I was a completely different version of myself.
Yeah, I was like,
that.
Where was the gap?
Yes, exactly. So what did that look like?
Well, before I started riding, I was just a young 24-year-old trying to get through university, not knowing where I was going with an arts degree, just working a cashier job. I was just kind of mindlessly, but as a young 20-year-old, all you do is just make money and party. So that was my identity. My identity was just a crazy, not a crazy, but like a party gal who just
figuring out life and having a great time, and like you got your independence and you're fumbling and bumbling along, and yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
At an age where I didn't have a whole lot of responsibilities as I do now, I was very carefree, but I was just afraid of getting on a motorcycle. Like it was just not even in my thoughts to go and get a license, and I didn't have that spark. I didn't have anything. I didn't have anyone in my life who rode a motorcycle. So, I hear stories of people with, dads and working in the garage, working with them. And I didn't have that. I come from a family of, finance people.
Oh, interesting.
And who are just all completely like anti-motorcycles, anti-fun, anti-risk taking.
Conservative.
That's the
We're
word.
conservative.
Very conservative, right? So the gap, it was a huge, drastic change in my life when I started working there, for sure. But
what brought you to Trev's? How did you get from that to then being like, you know what? I'm going to apply here. What made you walk in? Like,
it was
how did that?
Yeah, I was working at a cashier job at a grocery store, and I was very complacent, like in that life. Just work my 9 to 5, get my paycheck, go out with friends and whatnot, go shopping, whatnot. But like that was the excitement I had. So I was very bored. I was really bored, and I still had a lot in me that wanted to do something crazy, something extreme, something new. And so, yeah, one of my friends, he was basically, recruiting people to employers and all that kind of stuff. And so one day he was just like, hey, I know you're kind of looking for a new job. What do you think about motorcycles? And I was just like, yeah, I think they're all right.
I haven't thought about them, but if I had to, yeah, they're not bad. Talk about the life chose you. Like
that's exactly what I was thinking.
I was like,
more.
yeah,
I love
man. I was like
this.
That chose you in a big way. Because like out of all the jobs that he was, and he looked at you and was like, hey, what do you think about motorcycling? Even 10 years ago, there wasn't a lot of women riders. And so even for that guy that's a headhunter, that's a friend of yours, that knows you have no interest in motorcycles or any of those things, the fact that he looked at you as a female 10 years ago and said, yeah, you know what? I'm going to pitch this to her and not some random dude that doesn't like motorcycles. Because again, back then there wasn't, you know what I mean? Like all those things lead me to believe that something was planted in that guy's head to be like, you know what? Check in with Yooki. Like ask Yooki.
Like it came out of the blue. It was so random. That's where it started.
I'm really curious because I know you shared in the middle of that you came from a conservative finance family, ultra buttoned up, that hates or just really didn't have a love for motorcycle culture. And then you're describing where you were at that point in your 20s, tatted up, piercings everywhere, this rebellious streak. What were we pushing back on?
Well, I mean, I'm extremely lucky to have, like, my mother is pretty conservative, but I know for a fact that when she was in her 20s, she worked as a waitress in Japan, and she was just saving a heck of a lot of money, and she just decided, I'm just going to go backpacking in Europe. I'm going to go to all these places, go to Egypt. She traveled the world, right?
Incredible.
And like, I know she smoked that ganja when she was in Holland. So, like she can't
Yeah, mom.
pretend she's all innocent. So, there's that in the blood, I know for sure. But
some more the spirit of than a rebellion against.
Exactly. Right. But
Love that.
Very cool.
that generation and that culture where she had to like suppress a lot of that rebellious side. Whether or not she'd admit it. I know for a fact that she has that in her, and I probably got a little bit of that from her. But with that being said, she's still very conservative in so many ways. Well, as a mother, right? As a mother, you always worry about your child, your children, whether they're going to be safe, whether they're going to be successful in life, not just financially, but are they going to be happy? Are they going to fulfill their soul throughout their lives? Yeah. So, with that all being said, I know I'm so like grateful to have such supportive parents, and, they never stopped me. They never tried to, get me to settle. They don't want that. So for them, amazing. Especially my mother, it's scary. It was really scary for her to see her daughter go through all these transformations, modify her look, modify her face, and to know, she already knew that I was going to get my motorcycle license, and I was going to have my own bike, and knowing that her daughter was always out there risking her life, it always terrified her. But she's always been really proud of me, of just sticking to it and challenging myself. And she's never seen me this happy in her entire life, as she said, compared to all the other things that I've gone through in my teenage years and my childhood. She said, this is something that I've seen that liberates you. And you're just finding your way. And, if she were to hold me back, I wouldn't be able to do that. And she knew that. So
probably a part of her gets to kind of live through too, as well. The part that, she did when she was younger, and then had to kind of rein it in and, like you said, suppress, sort of thing, and getting to watch her daughter get to live that out in full fruition and continue that journey without having to come back and suppress it in her later adult life because of expectations or whatever, all the different things that come to place. So I'm sure that was, I'm sure that means a lot to her to be able to watch you, like you said, how proud she is of you in that.
I would think so. Yeah, absolutely.
So at this point now, you're at Trev Deeley, got the motorcycle license. This community seed starts to be planted, and your life begins to shift. How?
So it started when I worked at the parts counter. I still remember the day when a guy in the community, Kenson, he was a client, a returning client, if you will. Like, he was there strolling in his kid in a baby strolling, and he was constantly buying parts for his bike. And we got to know each other over the counter that way. And one day he was just like, hey, like, you ride. I know you ride. Have you ever been on a group ride? And I'm like, no, I haven't. Like, I've been riding solo all these, like, the initial couple of years. So I said, yeah, why not? So he basically invited me out to this massive, big group ride. Like, my first group ride probably had like 100 people. I don't know.
Oh, shit.
Oh my God.
Looked like that to me. So I was
I'd have been shitting
not
my
intimidating
pants.
at all.
Oh, I could not sleep that night either. I was just like, I was like thinking about, I was thinking of excuses. Like, what could I possibly say that I can't make it anymore, because I was so freaking nervous. Like,
100 people, I would have just pretended I was there. I would have been like, I was in the back. I waved at you. You were up there and I was there, and there was like 50 people between us. I get that you didn't see me.
Damn it. I did not have that card ready in my pocket. Damn, that's so anyways, big group ride that was probably the biggest life-changing moments for me. It was funny because I showed up and, people were approaching me. People I had no idea who they were approaching me, and they were like, hey, this is so cool. And they started talking about, I was riding an Iron 883 at the time. And, we were talking about the bikes, and then they were just kind of like, where did you come from? And I'm like, I don't know. I've kind of been here all this time, but, and from then on, I found my people. I found, a group of guys, some gals, to ride with. And even then there weren't a whole lot of women. There were still, significant others sitting on the pillion, or in the back seat of a road glide or whatnot. And just participating as passengers. So, I felt pretty badass. I felt secretly proud of myself for, getting myself out of my safe zone, out of my personal safe zone, and to be a part of this group that was quickly growing. Went from probably 10 people to the Facebook group we created back in 2017. It was like the numbers were just rising. So from joining the group ride, creating our Facebook group, continuing to do our thing, I noticed that my social media page, Yooki Monster on Instagram, it just it wasn't even the number of followers. It was the feedback that I would get from people. DMs were thank you so much for inviting me to this group thing. Because of you, I met my own people, and now I have my small group of friends that I pretty much talk to every day and ride with. And that was really touching, because I thought, okay, it's, one guy told me that. And then I don't even know. From then on, it was just every day there was something. There was a story shared from somebody that I barely knew, or I also heard from women. Women were coming up to me. Oh, sweet Laureen, Laureen Chu. Mm-hmm. She still till this day tells me that I'm the reason why she rides. And oh my God, it really makes me tear up, because I didn't think that I would make such a huge impact on people's lives like that. Like to get a single person to feel like, hey, this woman is doing it, and I think I could, but if she's doing it, I think I can too. The community aspect of it really drew people to riding, because not only do they get to live their stories, they get to share that with other people, and it's just this ongoing, constant, inspirational journey that we all get to share with each other and have as our own. So I think it's a really beautiful thing that we get to continue to inspire other people without even trying to. I don't even know if that was the way to say it, but
Oh, it's wonderful, because it's the truth. It's like that when you're just kind of discovering parts of your life and you're being a part of a community and you're putting it out there, that representation inspires other to tap into parts of their lives. And especially when it comes to, if there's anything that's kind of under the surface saying, calling you towards the motorcycles and a woman seeing that it pulls that. But also within that, you're getting all of this really positive feedback, and you're in this state of discovery, and you're exploring self and building on self. And what oftentimes is we have an idea of like, well, that means we ride into the proverbial sunset, but that's not how it always works. Oftentimes we can swing into this really beautiful space in our lives and discovery, but also comes with it is some really other parts where we're like, it challenges us to, or not even challenges us, other parts come up that can be really tough as well, which can be really confusing when we're in really high spaces in life.
Mm.
And so tell us a little bit about where it started to, or if it was a continuation, or if it was a budding start to some elements of mental health that started to come through for you.
At the time, I think I was getting to the point where it was automatic. Like, it was without thought. I would go for a ride. Well, I would be working at the dealership, and then after the dealership, I would go out for a ride. And, you know, it was almost every day of that. So I'm working my 9 to 5 in the, in the industry, which is a whole other topic that I could get into another time or later on. But, you know, it started taking a huge toll on my body and my mental health, because it was, well, because for many of us, you know, riding is an escape, is a thing to do when you're not at work. But that was my work. So my whole life was basically motorcycles and the enjoyment of riding. It started to fade. It started to, like, it was really chipping away at my passion, my love, and just it being my outlet. Because even when I clocked out and I was technically, you know, not working, I felt like I was, because people recognize me as the girl from Deeley's. Oh, you're in service. Can I ask you a question about warranty? And it's just like, I'm just like having my beer and my fish and chips. I'm like, yeah, like, sure, you know, because I'm just that's the type of person I am, is that I'm always putting other people first. Well, you know, especially at that time, I was just saying yes to everything, right? I was saying yes to the rides. I was saying yes to, you know, after work events. I was saying yes to answering their questions, even though I was not on the job. So at the time, you know, looking back at the time, I didn't realize how it was taking a huge toll on me, because I still enjoyed it for a while, for at least for another 3-4 years. I was still enjoying the ride. And you know, when as you start to get older, you feel it in your body, and you feel drained. And even though you feel like you're recharging by eating well, going to sleep, and, you know, staying into your routine, you really start to feel it. And I wasn't listening to my body at the time. And, you know, I was just like always on social media, always posting things, you know, just engaging with people. But I wasn't really looking after myself very well. As you know, when you get so busy, and you're just like, you're constantly thinking about work, or you're constantly thinking about your full calendar of scheduled events, and, you know, tasks and planning and all this kind of stuff. And on top of that, you're still going out there and, you know, riding your motorcycle, whether it's for fun or for work or whatnot. You just burn out. Right? Like, you eventually just burn. So, I had to, like, slowly, I slowly step back and kind of away from the limelight. And it was this weird transitional period for me, because I I even started to hate my job. And I never showed that. Like I always showed up for work. I always showed up for people. And that same feeling I had about towards work was also towards these community events, bike life rides. I started to feel that in my bones heavily. And it was really hard because I not only built my identity around this, it was a huge part of who I was and
Yeah.
I am now as well. And so it was really hard to make that call to step away because I was still like finding myself being pulled in and wanting to go back. It's kind of like, when you're constantly running on the treadmill and then you suddenly shut it off and you're just kind of like, well, my body is still my body is still
Yeah. Yeah. It's also wanting the reinforcement and the validation and the feeling of belongings and the connection, because it's also the biggest source of joy that changed your life. And so that's why it's so confusing on the brain and body when you're like, so we're not going to do that. And they're like, what are you talking about? We're not going to do this anymore. Like, and you're like, well, because there's also the part that you're like, I don't know how to have balance yet.
Yes.
And it's a real mind fuck when we do those things and make that shift. And also just that, the addiction to a certain part of our identity as like, well, if I'm not fully that, then what am I? And that feels so discombobulating and like untethered. It's super healthy, but it feels fucking hard.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm curious because exactly that, not only is it the addiction to that, but you're also getting this incredible positive reinforcement, as you say, every single time it's pulling you back in. And one thing that I've noticed that you've said a couple of times, and it's ultra relatable, so there may be something more to it, there may not be, but that being your work life and your ride life, it was escapism. And when you stepped into this, I'm curious, could you identify what you were escaping? Like, is that something that you had to sit with when the proverbial treadmill stopped and you're still running?
Absolutely. Yes. As we all know it, there's certain things with the motorcycle culture, that lifestyle that people attach themselves to. And I myself, I would say that I have a pretty addictive personality. Like I get so hooked on something that I find myself loving, right? And the good and the bad, all the things. And so I've struggled with depression like since I was a child, since I was like 5 or 6 years old. And so the escapism, like it was riding a motorcycle, whether it was by myself or, ride with a small group of friends who I get to talk to as well about these deep and really heavy topics, and what I'm feeling that day, what I'm going through. I get so consumed in that and the dark thoughts that I have, the conversation that I have with myself. And it's the things that we don't see from the outside, right? And I know that's heavy for the listeners and people in the community. And so I found that detaching myself was one of the hardest things to do. And I know that people have seen my disappearance, and just the lack of engagement, the posts, and just silence. It's kind of, I just really shut down, really. And at first it was in a very unhealthy way. Behind closed doors, I felt really isolated and alone in what I was going through. I thought the friends that I had, they didn't like me anymore because of the decision of stepping away. And, eventually I went back to school and I got into horticulture, but it was a really challenging time to to finally decide to put myself first. I knew that a lot of things would change in my life. I knew that my circle of friends would change. I knew that I would change, and maybe they wouldn't. Maybe we would grow apart, and that's pretty much what happened. And it took me a long time to accept that, because at first I felt really bad for doing this for myself, because like you said, I also felt like I lost a huge part of who I am. And without the constant engagement, without being the so-called epicenter of bike life Vancouver, it was like, without that, who am I? Like I kind of had to start from, I felt like I had to start from scratch and really like restart this whole journey of finding myself, because I felt like when I was identified as a biker chick, as a girl from Trev Deeley, as the queen of bike life, or whatever they called me at the time, without that, I wouldn't know who I was. And sorry, I'm just getting a little emotional here, but really? I felt like I let a lot of people down. I felt like I let myself down, and I wasn't sure if I was making the right decision, is what I was trying to say. And I feel so grateful, even till this day. I feel very grateful to have done all of that, to have shown up for people, to have inspired people, and to know that a lot of these people who became my friends and like family also looked after me. Like I would never discount that once in my life. I would never forget all those times that they had my back. Like I had that major motorcycle crash back in 2018, and I had these guys who were like brothers to me show up at the hospital. They organized a big charity event for me to help get me back on the motorcycle, get me back on my 2 feet, and to support me financially, knowing that I couldn't do anything that summer. There's a long list of thank yous that I could put out there in the world and to them. But yeah, it was that whole struggle of identity, like the self-image that was deteriorating at times, when I felt like a failure. I felt that way so many times, and I couldn't find my way back. Like I couldn't find my way back to be posting on Instagram and doing videos on Facebook with people all the time. Like I could not find my way back there. And I eventually accepted that, because I was already moving on to a new chapter of my life. And that's with plants. I became the crazy plant lady.
Yeah, you did.
Yes, you did.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah. So,
that's a pretty beautiful gal to be, but you're also all the things. Yeah. Like you're still, you know what I mean? Like you're still biker Yuki, and you're none of those things, and you're all of those things. And I think one of the most painful things of growth too is we can't bring everyone with us. Not everyone wants to go with us. And there's so many different reasons for that, and it's their own reasons, but it's painful too, because it's like that journey is so scary and lonely. I hear you so deeply in that experience of depression. I experienced it as well from a very young age. I wondered if I was just going to like forever be like haunted by depression for a lifetime. I'm happy to say that I have a managing on it, and it's different. It lives differently in me. But the point of it is that there was places where I went to within myself that I just wanted so deeply for the people that I loved and loved me to come with me, and they couldn't. They didn't know how, or me doing that work or going to those places or questioning things was too scary for them. So, and it came across as rejection, or it came across as avoidance and their coping mechanisms. I didn't learn that till later. I just thought I was abandoned. And like you said, it's so painful, but it's also so necessary. And it's almost like one of the things I really wished a long time ago someone would have said to me is that, like, it's not just painful internally, it's painful externally, but it's worth every droplet of pain that you will feel on the other side of it.
Mm-hmm.
But we just don't, we don't grow at the same paces as the people in our lives always. Doesn't mean we don't find our way back to one another, stronger for it. But there is periods of time where people that felt like the most closest thing to home feel like a virtual stranger. And when we're a stranger to ourselves in those moments, that becomes even more confusing and painful. And so I just want to point out the courage that it took for you to not only to walk away from that with your relationships, but you walked away from, or you stepped away, I should say, more than walked away, is that you stepped away and had the courage to choose yourself and abandon the identity, but choose yourself.
Yes.
And then you found a new version, and you're all of those things and none of those things. And you'll be another version down the road, and we all will. And we'll be all of those things, and we'll add it, but we'll still be none of it.
Yeah.
We'll still be none of it. And you had the courage to step into that. And it's knowing firsthand what that feels like, but also just from the outside, hearing your story, I just can't commend it enough of just appreciate it. That's a better word. Appreciate it, of the strength that would have taken to do so.
Thank you so much for that. Yeah. And that's why I wanted to share my story with you guys and with the listeners, because I know that I'm not alone in this, and I wanted to have people understand that healing journey, it's never linear, right? It's never linear.
Yeah.
And it doesn't look the same for everybody. And so it's such a complicated thing, but I think a lot of times we complicate it for ourselves. Like, I don't know about you guys, but I'm always and still super hard on myself. And I always think that the world is judging me. I still feel like I'm disliked by like a lot of people, but it's not about being liked, or it's not about the world telling you that you're doing the right thing. Because if you don't tell yourself that, if you don't have yourself feel that you're on the right path, even if it feels wrong, even if it feels scary, to have the guts to do it, to have the courage to do it, and to have each other to support is so crucial to the healing journey, no matter how that looks like, right? And so I know that people still, like he said, I still ride. I still do. I just don't share it online. I don't even take pictures. It's not, because my focus is really just on riding and the freedom, that liberation, that space for introspection, when you feeling the wind in your hair, when you're out in the nature, when you're just outdoors on your bike. It's that safe haven that I once had, and I felt like I lost. It's still there, yes, but I found a balance that works for me, and it's a little bit of everything. And I still struggle. Like, I still have days where I find it really hard to get out of bed. I sometimes, think about stuff from the past and how I've had disagreements with certain people, or yeah, there. The funny thing about the whole community is, yeah, we have our groups, right? And at times it did feel cliquey, and it just brought me back to high school days where I go to school and it's like people are whispering and I know people are saying or thinking stuff about me, but I still had to walk through life, and I just kept my chin up, and I was just trying to tell myself that, it's going to be a good day no matter what, because you're doing something for yourself. And we don't realize how we touch other people's lives just by being ourselves. And I think it's just such a phenomenal thing that we have this, as women, we have this community, we have this passion, this connectivity that we have with each other is pretty much unlike any other, right? So
it really is.
Right.
Well, and I feel like what you speak to there so eloquently is that turbulence, that messy middle that Lori and I talk about on the podcast all the time. And making the choice to continue to move forward when everything feels so new, prickly, gross, sickening, because you're stepping away from something that was so reinforced and felt so good. So it can almost be internally frustrating where you're like, fuck, I really have to walk this way to rebuild trust within myself. Like it's infuriating, but the fact that you were willing to take that bet on yourself, because at the end of the day, as you say, yes, you still have those days where the inner critic decides to be at the helm. But what's so apparent as you share that is your level of awareness around that, which means you're not the pillion of your life. You are in the driver's seat. And at the end of the day, your inner landscape, I'm so curious, as you've started to embody this version that feels more true, although you have those days, what does the inner world feel like as you've leaned more into this space?
So as I lean more into horticulture and just this sweet balance that I found in my life, I feel there's more moments of calmness, more stillness. That's a huge, huge change up from what I used to experience, because there was hardly any stillness. It was always go, go, go. And when you're constantly on the go, as most of us are, it's so vital to find those moments of being still. Like the stillness is that safe space that you allow yourself to be in so that you can rest, so then you can relax. It's to introspect, it's to reflect. And being in that stillness, it also reveals a lot of truth that we often forget in our day-to-day lives. And one of that is really like taking care of yourself. And I know it's not an easy thing when you're so busy, but I find that when I work for a company, and we install and maintain living walls and green roofs and indoor outdoor plants, and I'm totally in my what do they call it, I'm in my element, and it's another element that I'm in that I enjoy, and it's just something that I discovered that I get to have and I get to do peacefully without relying on anyone else. There's a great community in the plant world as well. that I found, when I got into plants about 4 years ago. but it's different, you know, the vibe is so different, to me at least.
I'm sure it's less aggressive.
Yeah,
like motorcycles to plants. I'm like, I feel like they're probably a little bit more namaste.
totally more namaste. Like the energy is so different compared to the motorcycle community. Like the one big thing is, yeah, people are generally, like, I would say 99.5% super duper nice. Like you could ask stupid, like, you know, the stupidest questions, like, why is my plant dying? And it's just like, no one's judgy.
Imagine an asshole that works with plants.
Yeah.
And they're like, come on, you
Right.
need to water it. And the plants are just shriveling like these living beings. Are like, oh my God. Like the idea of an aggressive plant. Like,
the juxtaposition for
the
sure.
Juxtaposition. I just like
strangling them at the root.
Yeah, just God, stupid plants.
Right.
Stupid people. You know.
Yeah.
Oh,
Totally.
that's the 1%. They're out there.
Yeah, they're out there. Yeah, absolutely. They are. They're in their creepy little basement,
Yeah.
computer, holding their dead plants or something, you know.
Yeah.
But
it would be, a really good environment to especially kind of entering back in, you know, like being part of a community too. Like I just popped into my head to feel as though you had to step away and then to feel a certain amount of, you know, like you said, like the insecurities around of like, well, what ideas of who Yooki is do people still hold in their mind's eye about me, and how much has been, you know, changed because of people potentially gossiping or sharing their version or all those different things. And then that always is that feeling, because you're just like, parts of me live out there that aren't real or aren't true to the whole story. That's the hardest part for, you know, I think any of us that have really switched up our lives in certain ways. You're like, man, there's versions of me that will forever live out there and people's ideas of me, but it's also just part of it. But then to re-enter a community, for it to be such a gentle space, that I figure that really, and not that the motorcycle community isn't like the women's community that I've experienced has been very gentle. You know, we're wily and big personalities and all those things, but gentle. But I especially see that environment of people that are passionate about nature and about living organisms and caring and knowing them. And that would be an incredibly nurturing, no pun intended, community to like enter into after kind of feeling as though like, I'm going to step into this community. And even though the last one, there were so many positives, like you said, I couldn't, there's not enough thanks that I can give, but there was also hard parts about stepping away too, that left a person feeling, you know, kind of like misunderstood and, or, you know, left behind or not supported, those types of things. I could be wrong in that, but like, that's kind of the image of like, what a beautiful space to enter in when you're really feeling vulnerable still.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. You know, just moving into a whole new world with a whole new group of people and different personalities. It really felt like, I keep saying safe, such a strong like vocab of mine, because it means you can be vulnerable. You could be silly. You could say nothing at all, or you could say everything, and it's okay. It's okay to really be yourself. And you know, Lori, like you said, I think in retrospect, I was definitely putting on a show a lot of times, whether it was the authentic or inauthentic self. It was this identity that I created, Yuki monster. You know, she's wild. She's a wild child. She's got this energy that is so contagious, and people wanted to be around that. But so many people wanted to be around that. It was almost like I was constantly crowded, and while I was going through inner struggles, it was just kind of like, I just, you know what, like, I'm still alive, I'm still well, I'm still doing this. I'll just go until I can't anymore. Whereas the plant community, a lot of us are actually, we're finding ourselves to be these quirky people who are also, there's a lot of, I know people don't like the word damaged, but like it's true. A lot of us are damaged in certain ways where we're still finding ways to heal ourselves and to be happy and to live our best lives, or just to be in peace, to live peacefully. Right. And so a lot of us plant quirks, we are we are like super open and honest about our weird sayings, our weird thoughts about how we take care of our own plants, and what plant are we currently so obsessed about that's like $1,000 and it's crazy, but one day we wish to have, or, you know, like the common conversations we would have is like, oh, my plant that I got from you died. Like, do you still have the mother plant so I could take cutting off of? And we're just constantly our own insurance, you know, policies to just have a replacement plant. And it's just like that. As something as simple as that, or, you know, hey, you know, I haven't seen you around. Like, are you okay? And we actually do check-ins, and you know, we phone each other up, and honestly, we are each other's therapists at times, because of how tremendously we support each other. And we just, even when we're down on ourselves, to have an outer voice tell you, you know, what they see you as a person, and, you know, oh my God. Yeah, it really helps you, you know, pull you out of that darkness, and to remember who you are to other people, but you are to yourself, because we forget that, you know. And you know what? Don't get me wrong. Like the groups that I was in, you know, the Litas, with Bike Life Vancouver, with the family at Trev Deeley, and, you know, the clients that I became friends with as well. Like they've all supported me in so many ways that I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for them. So even if we don't see each other, even if we are out of each other's lives, like, I still hold that deeply in my heart, that, you know, part of my journey, and I was part of theirs too.
Beautifully said.
Lori, I think it's that time.
It's motivation maintenance sing song time. Yuki, do you want to sing with us? Do you want to sing with us?
Of course.
It's motivation maintenance, and it's wherever your heart takes you when you sing it. And try and harmonize, but not at all harmonize. So those are the
there are no rules.
There are no rules.
Okay. 3, 2, 1.
Do this.
Motivation maintenance. I think that was our best one yet. So this is where you give us a tool or a nugget of wisdom that we can take along for our ride based on what you shared today. So what can people instill from your incredible story?
You can listen to your inner voice. You can acknowledge it, but don't believe what it says all the time. Step back, be still, but don't stay still for too long. Reach out to people who you trust. Reach out to people who's got your back when you find yourself feeling trapped. Because it's the peaks and valleys, it's the ebb and flow, it's the light and dark. It's not to say don't be negative and shut all that darkness out. It's all part of you. And so I'd say embrace it, get to know it, but yeah, don't let it consume you. So, and just have fun. Try something new, you know, explore yourself. Do something yourself individually, or find a friend and say, hey, you want to try skydiving? I've never done that before, and I would never do it, but I'll do it with you.
I was going to ask, is that an invitation?
Yeah. Freaking hell it is.
I'm terrified of heights, and I've already promised Chrissy bungee jumping. I shouldn't mention it. True. I thought she forgot for a sec.
I didn't, but funny enough, I'd say skydiving's better because bungee jumping, you can't avoid that front wedge in the bounce back, whereas skydiving, the harness is a little friendlier to our lady bits.
Yeah.
Nobody needs a choked vagina, just saying.
Yeah. If I had to choose
0 out of 10 recommend.
Totally.
If I had to choose, I go with non-choked vagina. Is there a quote is there a quote that you got that you would like to share?
I actually, well, it really is, it touches on what I was saying earlier, but
yeah,
stillness has a way of revealing what truly matters. And without distraction, noise, there's always that space to breathe and reflect and to reset. And often the clearest answers come to you when you stop forcing them.
Hallelujah. Amen. That is the truth.
Yeah.
Hallelujah. Yuki, thank you so much for coming on today and joining us and sharing so openly and not holding back, when those tough moments came up, and because that's hard to share and let yourself go to those spaces. It's just one more example of how, you're allowing yourself to continually go to these courageous places in life. And I'm excited for people too, that if anybody has been on the outside watching your story and had their interpretation of it, to hear it from you, from your own experience, that they're open to acknowledging not even acknowledging, hearing and seeing it in a different light, but ultimately as well of reminding yourself of when you have an idea of someone's story or what's going on for them or a judgment around it. This is a prime example of you have pieces that you're interpreting in your own, storyline, that everyone's doing the best that they can. They're just trying to figure it out. They're just trying to do right by themselves and others in their community and give the grace, give the openness, and give the most generous interpretation of it. Because chances are when you hear the full story, it is the most generous interpretation. And the only thing that makes things harder on all of our stories is when we're not giving that grace and we're judging it. Because we can feel the energy, even if you're not saying it to someone's face, you can feel the energy of it. You can feel frustrated with friends and those, if they're, you don't understand or you have these moments, you're a human, but it's those like casting the judgments. And so I just appreciate that and just kind of wanted to share that sentiment on it as well.
Well said. Damn.
Yeah, we're so appreciative of you, Yuki. And with that said, Lori,
that is your motivation.
You've just listened to the Motovation Podcast with your host, Chrissy Van, and me, Lori Joy Kingwell.
Thanks for joining us along the ride. We've got new episodes dropping every Monday, and we're all about community. So follow us on Instagram at Motovation Podcast and visit our website at themotovation.com.
And in the meantime, tanks full and full throttle.